Hello again. Well, IPOs have been a big hit this year. You may have heard about one of the new IPOs that will be coming up soon, Snowflake. Snowflake. Sometimes that carries a negative connotation in today's world, but today I want to talk about Snowflake, the company. So, what you see in front of you here is the SEC filing paperwork that Snowflake provided to the government. These are always interesting documents to read through. I really enjoy being able to see how the company shares where they're doing well and also how they share what the risks are of investing in their company, which maybe you don't always get to hear. Now, granted, this is a one-sided assessment of risk. Certainly, other people may have opinions on what the risk is of investing in a new IPO or investing in any company, but it's nice to see a company share their own thoughts about what some of the risks can be. So let's talk about Snowflake. You may have heard of it. What in the world is it? Well, Snowflake is all about data and being a warehouse for that data and being able to query that data and manage that data. So in the past, people may have had data warehouses, physical buildings on their premises or at another site in their company that housed the data and then had to have computer systems to manage that data and query that data. Snowflake eliminates all of those on-site needs and instead converts it all to the cloud. Well, now, what is the cloud? Well, obviously, the cloud really is more computer systems, but they're handled all over the internet and not on site at your facility. So, what is it about Snowflake that helps with this, or what's the interesting part of Snowflake? So, this comes from the Snowflake website. You can see that their business is sort of based on three layers here. They have the centralized storage, which is, the cloud storage. That's where your data is going to go. Then the next layer up, they talk about this multi-cluster computing. It's decoupled from the storage layer. So you can have multiple people querying this data without slowing each other down. And then, of course, they've added a cloud services to help with security and transactions and metadata and a lot of things that are really beyond my scope of understanding computing. What's interesting about this? Well, Snowflake runs on three cloud services. You can see here Google Cloud, AWS, which is Amazon's, and then Microsoft Azure. Why is that interesting? Well, if we go back to the SEC filing, I'll get to that in a minute, or I can show you how they talk about it. But essentially, with people who are providing services to them, that is a very interesting business premise. And they will talk about in their SEC filing how that is a risk. Well, let's talk about Snowflake and how it's doing. So, obviously, they're giving you some of their nice facts from all of their financial data, but 121% revenue growth second quarter year over year. That is always nice to see revenue growth. Customers, 3,117 customers, and 56 of them are doing at least $1 million worth of business with them. And then they show how many data queries they're doing daily. So how is their business doing? Well, if you look at this chart, you can see how they've been doing 29 million in one quarter up to 37, 44, 60, 73. You can see things are growing quite well with this business. Now, again, this is only in millions, which is not as nice as billions, but you can see that this is a early, quickly growing company. So you can always look here and see what their industry background is. It talks about data and cloud adoption of data here. They talk about some of the limitations of existing technology. This really is going to tell you why their business is unique and will be important to you and the people who use their business. And then they talk about their solutions to these problems listed there. Now, we get down here to benefits to customers. I see the big one here as reduce the time spent managing infrastructure and enable greater data access through enhanced data governance. When you look on their website, you can see some videos that will show you how things that used to take hours or days are coming back, in minutes when querying data. And I think some of that has to do with not having multiple people tied up into the same data computing string. They show how you can have virtual warehouses, and anybody can create a virtual warehouse in really just a few minutes and then be able to query the data. What else is unique about their company? One thing that I find unique about their company is their business model. They talk about going from a consumption model to a utility model. So in the past, people may have paid for unused services or unused capacity. Reminds me of the days of cell phones where you just paid for minutes every month. And even if you didn't use those minutes, boy, you were going to pay for them. Well, Snowflake has changed that to a utility model, they call it, meaning essentially you only pay for what you use. So you have all this data out there that you might be paying to store data there, but you aren't paying for the queries and manipulating that data unless you are actually querying or manipulating that data. I think that's something that will help this company grow. Especially for a lot of smaller businesses that maybe don't have a lot of budget for managing data. They'll only pay for what they use. Let's talk about risks. Of course, investing is full of risks, and the company lists some of the risks that they think are involved in investing in their business. One, they have a limited operating history. They haven't been around that long, so it's difficult to forecast what the future will look like for them. And they may not have visibility into their financial position and results of operations. I think that goes along with a young company. Next big one, operating losses. They haven't turned a profit yet. We've talked about that a little bit in the past. Most new businesses don't turn a profit for several years, so they haven't turned a profit. I will quickly show you their financial statement before we finish today. What is another big risk? Well, the big one that I see with their company is, as I mentioned, they operate on the cloud, Google's cloud system and Amazon's cloud system and Microsoft's cloud system. And they compete with those companies. Obviously, those cloud systems are doing similar business. It's an interesting business model to buy services or space on your competitors' platforms. So what could happen? Well, those platforms could either increase the price that they charge Snowflake and those prices get passed along to the consumer, or they could do any other things that to try to manipulate people away from Snowflake. Something to think about if you're going to invest in this company. All right. As promised, the numbers. It's always good to look at the numbers. Here they are, 2019 and 2020. Revenue in 2019, 96,000 essentially. Same quarter, 2020, 264,000. Really nice to see that increase in revenue growth. Same with gross profit. Of course, then you get to operating expenses though, and this is where they start losing money after they add up all their sales and marketing and research and general administrative costs. Money that they're losing is going up as well. This just happens with new companies sometimes, but it's always a concern. You definitely want to start to see them turn a profit. Now, let's talk about their IPO. It's going to come in between $75 and $85 a share. I think we can thank Berkshire Hathaway and Salesforce for that. Both companies recently said that they would be investing in Snowflake. I think the clout of both of those companies allows Snowflake to have a higher price than most IPOs that we've seen recently. Nevertheless, that's what it's going to be, $75 to $85 a share when it comes out. Set your calendar reminder for September 15th. That's the day it's expected. You never know, things can always change. Sometime during this week, though, we should see the Snowflake IPO, and again, the 15th is when it's expected. I hope this gave you some information about Snowflake, what the company does, what some of its advantages are, what some of the risks are, and of course the price that it's coming in at. Thank you once again, Berkshire Hathaway and Salesforce. Until next time, talk to you later.